I'll make no apology for keep banging on about this same subject, which is the EU Britain renegotiation or capitulation by two-tier Kia. So more details are coming out. The main part of this deal seems to be the fishing negotiation, fishing rights, which we appear to have completely rolled over on. So we have now given away complete access to British fishing waters for the next 12 years. The talk was that it was going to be for 4 or 5 years, but Kia, good old Kia, has struck a blinding deal and gone, no, we don't want to do 4 or 5 years. You can have access to our fishing waters for 12 years. Well done, Kia. But what's really interesting is I put a video on yesterday saying about the lack of democracy involved in this, that Starmer basically has gone back on the Brexit vote without any vote by the people on it, but also more importantly, without any even debate, discussion, or vote on it in Parliament. What's really interesting is that the Scottish Government have come out this morning and said that they have not been consulted, notified, or given any details on this whatsoever. Now, bear in mind that Scotland has a very large number of coastal communities that rely very, very heavily on fishing. It's their main industry in many of those coastal communities. And the Scottish Government have come out and said, we knew nothing about this. No consultation. We weren't told it was going to happen. We didn't have a clue. So is that how Starmer treats the devolved governments in this country? Is that how he believes that he can behave when negotiating for the UK, that he can just completely ignore the governments of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, for example? However, the Welsh Government haven't said the same. Why could that possibly be? Well, maybe it's because the Welsh devolved government is a Labour government. So are we saying that the Labour Party are more than happy to consult with their own mates, but they'll completely ignore anybody that's not in their gang? So have they told the Welsh but not told the Scottish? Is that fair? Is that how you should conduct government? Is that the right way to go about things? Is that the correct way to proceed in a democratic nation? Doesn't sound like it to me. So the Scottish people, who actually largely voted to remain, I would imagine are going to be slightly pissed off when they find out that their government that they elected didn't have a clue what was being done to their country. Not a clue. It's just completely out of order. So let's look at what we've actually won in return for the complete surrender of our fishing industry. Well, we've won a relaxation in the SPS rules. So basically, there are a load of rules that govern what UK exporters can export to the EU in terms of live produce, fish, agricultural produce, meat products, etc., etc. And apparently the EU have been applying those rules really extra rigorously, essentially just to punish us for having the temerity to leave and daring to reject them. And what they're now going to do is they're just going to apply those rules the same as they would to any other EU nation. They're going to treat us like the other EU nations. But the critical thing to note here is that they are their rules. They are EU rules. We will be complying with their standards and their rules. So if they decide to change those rules in the future, whether they make them tougher or whether they relax them, whether they reduce food standards or increase food standards, we have to comply with them. And it's a fallacy to say that our food standards are lower than the EU's food standards. And so we'll be getting a good deal out of this, because in many, many areas they're not. We have better food standards than much of the EU and much of Europe in many areas. But we now have to comply with their food standards. We are now a rule taker rather than a rule maker. So we've surrendered our fishing grounds in order to comply with EU rules and allow us maybe to export a little bit more. Is that worthwhile? What else have we won? Well, apparently we can now use the e-gates at their airports and their ports. Really. Many of the countries allowed us to do that anyway, because it was done on an individual basis. So that's literally the square root of fuck all in terms of concessions. It's a complete betrayal. A total betrayal of Brexit. A total betrayal, it seems, of the Scottish Government, who didn't have a clue what was being signed away. A complete betrayal of our fishing communities. It's just a betrayal. Starmer is a traitor. The Labour government are traitors. and they're undemocratic traitors as well. I could say a lot more. I'm extremely angry. I know that I will get all the usual Remainer Brexiteer knobs coming on and going, their standard line is, what have we gained from Brexit? My argument to that is, we haven't gained a great deal because we've never had Brexit. Never, ever, ever. It hasn't been implemented. The Tories absolutely, completely bottled it. You've never even seen Brexit. What you've seen is sort of halfway house, fudged, sort of halfway in, halfway out sort of agreement. We've never had Brexit, and that's why it hasn't worked. No one's ever actually had the bottle to do it. And now we're sort of going back in. We've got the worst of all worlds. It's a joke.